We made it onto YouTube as that firing off of Monday, which I'm sure we'll have no shortage of stories to cover. Today, Dr. Kelly Victory will be on at 5:35, which I hope Jesse took that in, but he's got that okay. Always fails, the old saying in the military, somebody always fails to get the message. uh, that funky slide guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday, live at 5 on Newswire on both Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. I guess it's actually 3 of that, and I'm going to spare Jesse the YouTube comments today as we go. Oh, of course, we don't even know what we're going to talk about today because it's Monday, and we had a whole weekend of just everything was absolutely hunky-dory. Nothing went on. It was smooth sailing. Ha, ha, ha. Lots of stuff to cover today. California, in many fronts. We'll hit that on the first part. Nationally, of course, the Derek Chauvin trial wound up here in a second today, and we've got the whole stuff of that. We'll probably bring you some coverage on old Maxine that you probably haven't heard. You've probably been hearing the quotes that have been going on here lately, but we're going to dig up some of the real archives of Maxine Waters to let you in on. So much to get into, but as we did, we'll start off the weekend with the racing report, since we had those. Our last thing we had at Paris Auto Speedway finally opened up after more than a year of shutdown. On that, hit me number 4, please. David Lord won the Superstock Main. Tony Kincaid was second, and Dennis Woldridge was third. Man, that's a story. Names or been a long time in SoCal racing right there in your top 3 of that. A lot of you old timers will know that. American Stocks were won by Sweet O'Brien with Cameron Veach second and Mike Burks third. In the street stocks, the Kiwi, Stephen Davies was first. Brandon Kelly second, and George Bolden was third. The fourth one, the headliner, the final event, the main event at Paris Auto Speedway, the IMCA Modifieds, was won by Austin Kiefer. Billy Gervin was second, and Brandon Hoekstra was third. Carl Laney was fourth. The best of the better Becker records this time was Rick Becker. He finished fifth. Chuck 3, which we've had on the show, he was seventh, and there was only 7 that finished in that, and lots of aluminum was shredded as I predicted last Friday. When you put up the money and a lot of guys they really go for it, and man, they were doing it up. The other 3 divisions were actually pretty good. They didn't tear up much stuff, ran pretty much. I think the street stocks and American stocks ran green, white, checkered, no yellows, so that was good for them. But the modifieds made up for it. They tore up some equipment last night, but again, congratulations to Austin Kiefer. Biggest car count and biggest crowd I've seen at the stock car races in years, so that bodes well. I hope it keeps up. And we do have more, actually, as we started with more fun stories like that to report to you than what's coming up. Isn't it fun to live and be a resident of good old sunny California, which it was. What was it today? About 85, 90 degrees. It was warm today, wasn't it, Jesse? It was up on the gas on that. Number 4, please. California February fuel and December electricity prices continue to increase. There's a deal, and put the links to this in the comments, please, Jesse. Number 1, not in fuel and electricity prices in the America. In California, From December to February, we have been increasing at a rapid rate and faster than any state. On top of that, we are becoming more of the highest energy prices in the world. So if you want to see climate change, as I said, they test piloted it here, AB 32, climate change, global warming, carbon credits, raise the gas prices, just quit building the roads, as we brought to you last week, $6 billion of that gas tax increase, it never went to your roads. Those of you that supported it, now you know the lie. The positive part is you have the opportunity to come back and correct that. Now, I'm wondering if some of you that hold a lot of these folks, and I'm not going to mention them today, in high regard, why is there silence on this? They were part of the ones that sold the lie. Are they going to correct it? We shall see. If you don't want to be called out, then do the right thing. Step up, be a man, and tell it like it is. Hey, Diane and Ann on there tuning in, writing in the comments. If it wouldn't have come from a Cuomo, it would almost be unbelievable. But this is Chris, who what's getting $4 million under the table or above the table or what with his brother, the state of New York. He's CNN commentator. Da. He's the bag man. He's the equivalent of Hunter Biden for the Biden crime family. He's the bag man for the Como crime family. Now, if you want to know who the real racists are, we're going to play this clip from Andrew Cuomo on CNN on his show. So here we go.
George Floyd, Daunte Wright. I wonder if you'll remember their names 6 months from today, because they'll be replaced by so many others. You're here, people. What are you going to do when you see these shootings? You know what you're going to do. That George Floyd, did you hear about him? That Daunte Wright, did you hear about him? That 13-year-old Adam, you know he was a gangbanger. Why do that? Because you want to make the problem them. Takes the onus off the idea that you're wrong about policing not needing to change. Forget that police are trained to deal with non-compliance with force that is not lethal. Hey, comply or die. Yeah, and you know what the answer is? You really do. You don't like it. I don't like it. It scares me. Shootings, gun laws, access to weapons. Oh, I know when they'll change. Your kids start getting killed. White people's kids start getting killed. Smoking that doobie that's...
So there you go. They want change. So this is you got to reverse engineer what he's saying. He's given the signal. He's given the dog whistle, to use Uncle Joe Biden's term. Go out and kill some white kids. Then you BLM folks, you'll have control. Most people don't get the nuances of what they're saying when they're saying this. This is part and parcel to what Joe Biden, Andrew Cuomo, his dad of both of Chris Cuomo and Andrew Cuomo, Mario Cuomo, and Mad Maxine, which we'll get to in a minute, and the whole crew. That's the virtue signaling. That's the dog whistling. That's the instructions. It's okay. You want to make Chaz successful? Your occupation? Go kill some white kids. Because the change you're talking about is where You think the change is, or they're trying to project the change is, oh, there's going to be law and order and there's going to be no racism and all this is going to go away. Bull hockey. Just like, oh, when Barack Obama was going to be elected president, oh, well, then there's going to be no more racism. Racism flourished under Barack Obama, and he and Joe Biden pushed it. Now, this is the next level. It's going to happen because you and me are allowing it. There's a place there should be protests going on. It should be at the CNN building. How could you hire a racist advocating killing white kids? Because that's de facto what he was doing. He didn't exactly say it that way, but that's what he meant. Chris Cuomo on a national broadcasting system. This is what you'll get if you let that happen. Now, I want to get to this. I forgot to get to this one. But Bill Maloogian, the Fox 11 reporter, flip up number 4 real quick, please. We are losing him from Fox 11 LA. He's done some he was asking tough questions of Gavin Newsom, officials all across the board. He is leaving Fox 11, but he's not leaving Fox. He will be the LA correspondent for Fox National News. So we still will get the great reporting from that. It will just be on a national level instead of Fox 11. So we wish Bill Maloogian a lot of luck. We might not get as much local coverage of that, and I hope they get somebody as good or better than Bill was on the local coverage of that to handle Fox News 11 and the investigative reporting he was doing on top of that. But the gain is Fox National, and the LA correspondent will be Bill Maloogian, so hopefully he will push the exact stuff like this that's been going on in California on a national basis. Now I want to get to the Maxine Waters, just hold it there. I want to get to the first Maxine Waters quote, because the Derek Chauvin trial ended of that, and not sequestering them, as they pointed out right at the end. The Chauvin's attorney said, yeah, we're asking for a mistrial because Maxine Waters is out there trying to incite riots. This is Maxine Waters on the crew out there last night preaching, if we don't get what we want, we're going to burn it down. And if you want to see somebody who does not believe in law and justice and our criminal justice system, here's Maxine Waters. Here we go.
Reform. And so, yes, I would like to see the bill in Congress pass on police reform, but I know that the right wing, the racists, are opposed to it, and I don't know what's going to happen to it, but I know this: we've got to stay in the street, and we've got to demand justice.
As a black man, despite all of the efforts, I feel like nothing changes, and George Floyd is waking so many people up. Yet nothing has happened, despite the rhetoric. Like, what needs to happen that's different this year than all the years before?
We're looking for a guilty verdict. We're looking for a guilty verdict, and we're looking to see if all of the talk that took place and has been taking place after they saw what happened to George Floyd, if nothing does not happen, then we know that we've got to not only stay in the street, but we've got to fight for justice. But I am very hopeful, and I hope that we're going to get a verdict that say guilty, guilty, guilty. And if we don't, we cannot go away.
And not just manslaughter, right? I mean...
Oh, no, not manslaughter. No. This is guilty. for murder. I don't know whether it's in the first degree, but as far as I'm concerned, it's first degree murder.
Congresswoman, what happens if we do not get what you just told? What should the people do? What should protesters on the street do?
I didn't hear you.
What happens? What should protesters do?
Well, we got to stay on the street, and we've got to get more active. We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business.
What do you think about this curfew tonight?
So there you go. Maxine Waters has already convicted him of first-degree murder. If we do not get, according to Maxine Waters, we do not get a first-degree murder conviction, we are going to stay in the streets. We are going to push confrontation. We are going to burn it down, is what the dog whistle from Maxine Waters was. Now you run back and forth, and this is not new from Maxine. But it's Maxine Waters that is going to get Derek Chauvin, most likely, his case thrown out of court. The judge made a terrible mistake, in my opinion, and I'm no lawyer, give legal advice, by not sequestering the jury. The attorney for Derek Chauvin says, how could a jury convict them knowing of what went on, of the threats from a congressman, with the stuff that went on in the past year? How could you not call it a mistrial? Because this is just a last year, before we get to the history of Maxine Waters. While the rioting and looting was going on, here was Maxine Waters, a compilation from last year on Congressman Ken Buck's page. Here we go.
We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business.
If you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere. They're going to absolutely harass them until they decide that they're going to tell the president, no, I can't hang with you. I will go and take Trump out tonight. You think we're rallying now? You ain't seen nothing yet.
We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure.
Telling the crowd to push back. Harass them. This is the instructions Maxine has been giving the last year. But as Paul Harvey says, there is the rest of the story. This is the LA Times. Back in from Douglas Shute, back in May 10th of 1992, after the Rodney King riots. Waters focuses her rage, number 4 please, says inner city woes have been simmering and need action. And the article goes on to put on, and I'm running though, even as Rodney G. King, whose name was the rallying cry for rioters, pleaded for calm, but not Maxine Waters. 53, back in 92, 53-year-old lawmaker said, most reasonable human beings abhor violence, and so do I, but it's wrong to burn, kill, or shoot. But she pointed out that she spent long, quiet hours in our housing projects, fixing and doing that and trying to build up her deal. When asked about white fear, she insisted she talked about black fear. Asked to condemn the looters, she instead raked President George Poppy Bush over the coals. When the focus was put on problems in her district, she reported that the problem is that there's something desperately wrong with America. So right there, she was doing this in 92 after the Rodney King riots. Condemn the violence? Hell no. Ratchet it up. My district's in shambles, and 30 some odd years later it still is? It's not my fault. I didn't do anything. Blame Roy. It's his fault.
Why'd you do it?
That's the rhetoric. That's what's going on in America, and nobody is reporting, or that I've heard, in the dominant media. They're running these clips so that we played at the front of what she said last night or the night before and during last year, but nobody's reporting the history of Maxine Waters promoting, advocating for racism, violence, to get what she wants, which is to hold on to power. Control you so she is the slave master and you are the slave. That's what's going on. She was running the same rhetoric of the trials. If we don't get what we want, if we don't get the convictions we want in the Rodney King, we're going to burn it down. You go back and forth on this, and it's absolutely incredulous. Of what goes on. But this one was even probably even more important. Lady of Latina descent walked up to the school board of LA Unified School District. Said, you know what? You're killing our kids. Basically didn't maybe say that. You're doing irreparable harm to our kids. We want them back in class with teachers so they can learn. Our community needs us probably more than anyone because our kids are behind. And you see the LA board members on this video posted by UTLA Underground eating, not paying attention, while this woman blows the narrative that racist of UTLA Union head, Cicely Meyer Cruz, said, oh, it's the rich racist white parents and those Middle Eastern parents that want to go back to school. None of the people of color, or whatever that means, want to go back. Here's her impassioned plea to the LA Unified School District, posted by UTLA Underground. Here we go. I think. I'm hoping. Oh, maybe that will do it.
Suffered.
There we go.
Luckily, I had access to good public schools, and I was able to forge a new path for myself. Something that you're not able to give the children today with your closed schools. I'm here to tell you that I've been silenced by UTLA over and over and over again because my narrative goes against what they're trying to push. Specifically, the UTLA president I find disgusting and offensive. This organization is working to divide us and silence those of us who don't fit their narrative. Many days, I feel as if we're fighting a terrorist organization, and my children and thousands of others are being held hostage by this organization. I know firsthand education is the path forward, And thousands of children, just like me, are being robbed of opportunities every day that you keep schools closed. My community uses education as a stepping stone for a better life. And all of you should be ashamed of yourself for robbing these kids of these opportunities. A year of lost learning is something you will never be able to give back to any of these children. Your closed doors are hurting my children, but I know that you're hurting those children most of all. To those of you who say that campuses are not closed, I say that is false. We see the minutes of instruction and we see the quality of the Zoom instruction, and it does not equal a good education. I'm doing the majority of work at home, and my young elementary school kids have resources that I know many others do not. I'm sickened by the fact that you have allowed your doors to stay closed for so long, and you have no sense of urgency. The disservice you have done to every single child under your care is beyond me.
So, this lady explains it. This mother addressing the LA School Board, calling out the UTLA president. To summarize, calling her a racist, causing divide, terrorism of that, saying this whole Zoom in the room stuff is not opening schools. Quit BSing us. Quit telling our communities what to think, how to do it, and quit doing irreparable harm to the kids in our community. Now you look back on this, and the disgusting thing about that is the LA School Board members on the Zoom meeting that were eating, talking to others, not paying attention to this mom who was telling them the accurate story and blowing their BS paradigms of what they're trying to do right out the window. It's something that absolutely blows your mind. One last thing before we join KMET 1290. Flip up number 4, please, real quick. High-speed rail contractor donates to Newsom's recall defense. Tudor's Perini, which is the main contractor on the phony and got, $2 billion contract to do some of the construction on the train, the bullet train to nowhere. Throw it in $25,000 for Newsom's recall defense. On top of that, they read, a 60-page letter saying how screwed up this was. Well, their money got doubled, I think. Their original contract was $1 billion. They're up to $2 billion and counting. They're cashing in and then still calling it, saying this is ridiculous. Now, one thing in the Sun article that we posted up, I don't think it's accurate. They said Richard Bloom owns part of that. He was involved with Tudor Perini, which Richard Bloom, Senator, he was involved with Tudor Perini construction company. Actually, I don't think he is an owner of the company or partial owner, has an interest in it anymore, but did at one time. So we all can infer what goes on.
You got 1 minute.
Back and forth on that. So yeah, even though they did say, hey, this thing is screwed up, they're still giving Newsom $25,000 to beat the recall. And it's, again, when are these guys going to start calling? Tudor Perini knows more than no, but they sent that
30 seconds
of saying how disastrous, and they're the contractor building this stupid thing, the train to nowhere. And they're saying this is ridiculous. Yet they're giving 25 grand to the doofus up there to keep him in office. Companies start standing up. You're the next ones. You need to be...
Okay, here we go. IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
There's that funky slide guitar music. Comes on every Monday through Friday. Oh, live at 5:30. I just said that. Man, the weekend kind of got me confused on KMET 1490 AM. Broadcasting all over the Inland Empire on the aforementioned AM band. Joining our vast video audience on IE Newswire on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. Not going to say anything mean today because it upsets Jesse. Jesse, who's producing here, Sean, who's producing back at KMET, gets our show out on both simultaneously and in that going back and forth, so you can hear some of the stuff you won't hear today. You heard a lot about the Derek Chauvin trial ended. The defense said, you're going to have to cause it. They motioned for a mistrial saying Maxine Waters threatening, and you've been seeing the clips, and we played them, the one last night during the year, but you didn't see her doing the same stuff back in 92 after the Rodney King riots, and refused to condemn the violence of the Rodney King situation back in 92 in L.A. when she was a congressman there at 53. Refused to condemn the violence and is still doing it, doubling down on it today. And if it is declared a mistrial in the Derek Chauvin case, it's going to be Maxine Waters' fault. On top of that, she's the one saying, she's the judge, jury, and conviction. If we don't get a murder one conviction, burn it down. The dog whistling of Chris Cuomo on CNN saying if white kids don't get killed, you Black Lives Matter folks, you ain't going to get nothing done. So it was that quasi de facto saying go out and kill some white kids, and then, maybe your Chaz thing and stuff will be successful. California from December to February leading in fuel price increases in electricity, and the highest fuel and electricity prices, along with the worst roads and the worst delivery system that went from the top to the bottom in 30 years as we pay more money. Let the politicians handle it like the bullet train that the contractor just gave 25 grand to recall Newsom after writing a 70-page letter saying how screwed up the whole thing was. Tudor Perini is a contractor. I'd like to ask them, why are you giving him money instead of the recall Gavin Newsom so we can solve this? But as we do, we have the premier expert, in my opinion, not only in the medical field, but all things COVID and everything in between, because I have not found anything she said that has not been 100% spot on in her analysis, projections, or anything else. That world-renowned physician, Dr. Kelly Victory. Welcome to IE Newswire with Roy.
Hey, Roy. Happy to be back, as always.
Thank you. We'll get into some of the news that went over the past week and the weekend especially. But one of the few courses I did take in college was psychology, and I've always kind of studied human behavior. And one thing that's kind of, you hear a lot of in the media, talk show hosts, even people that I run across of every day, and I see this kind of thing. Oh, yeah, not taking the shot. Why are they controlling us? Yada, yada, yada. And then you hear these same people using the excuse of, well, I'm taking the shot because I want to do this or X, Y, and Z, and yada, 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 da, 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 da. what surprises me is how people can justify saying one thing and doing another on this, which is something that's like completely out of my nature. But what's your thought on that, Dr. Kelly?
Well, I share your sentiment about it, Roy, for sure. And the issue is this: I respect anyone's individual decision to take a vaccine. Clearly, some people make that decision based on what I believe are the right parameters, meaning they've decided that they are themselves in a particularly high risk category. Say you might be a 75-year-old obese person with diabetes, and you've done the risk calculation and said, it's worth the risk of the vaccine for me because I am in a particularly high risk category. If I get COVID, that I might have a bad outcome. There are other people who make the decision based on lifestyle issues, because they want to go on a cruise, because they want to travel, because they want to be able to attend social functions or sporting events or something of that sort. And they are effectively being coerced to do it in order to be able to regain those civil liberties. I respect someone's decision to do that, but I don't think it's the right decision. It's not the right way to make a decision, because if that individual has a bad outcome and you didn't get to go to you went to the sporting event but ended up having a stroke because of the vaccine, or you went on the cruise but you ended up having lifelong issues with an autoimmune disease because of one of these vaccines, it won't end up being worth that decision. So I try to encourage people to make the decision based on truly their individual risk from the virus and nothing else.
As you pointed out, the whole 7 billion population seems like is or pretty close to it, is this lab experiment on testing the effectiveness of a vaccine, of the COVID vaccine, I should say. And that I propose, I am in the non-vaccine part of this experiment of that. And two, I'm for personal choice. If you want to take the vaccine, fine. If you want to be an experiment, if you want to be the lab rat that has the needle stuck in your arm, fine. You should sign a waiver from now until the day you die. You will not sue. You will not use any public funds, medical-wise or anyway, until that, using it to take away of any condition you may get from that. Now, if you're willing to take personal responsibility for your entire life for taking that vaccine, then I say go right ahead. Me, I choose not to. Dr. Kelly.
No, I agree with you. And whether people want to think about it this way or not, individuals who take the vaccine right now, because none of these are FDA approved, they are, whether they want to think about it, they are subjects in the testing. You're a subject in the trial. The trials are going on right now. None of these vaccines are FDA approved. They're all being used under the emergency use authorization. So in fact, people getting vaccinated are subjects in a large trial. Again, one of the things people sign when they go to get the vaccine is something that says they understand that they have no legal recourse if they have a bad event from it, if they have any kind of adverse reaction. And the problem, again, Roy, is that people don't necessarily understand that the adverse events may not happen for months or years. Now, I'm not predicting that everyone's going to have a bad outcome, or that everyone's going to die, or that everyone's going to develop cancer or an autoimmune disease. But I do have significant concerns that there are people who will, and that we haven't fully tested these. So while some of the adverse events happen right away, you might get a sore arm or swelling or fever, chills, feel crummy for some days. And clearly some people have had out-and-out anaphylactic reactions or developed strokes or heart attacks as a result of these vaccines. Many people will develop side effects months and years from now, because the immune system, unfortunately, is just one of those really complex systems in human nature that we don't fully understand, particularly the development of autoimmune reactions when the body is faced with an outside pathogen.
Yes, I believe in the, like I say, I think they should have made that clear. I think we talked about it last week, but they should even that. You should sign the waiver on that. You take responsibility. If you want to go for it, fine. Don't make it mandatory on that of everybody else. So I want to get to this one because Megyn Kelly interviewed Josh Rogan. Now, Josh Rogan is part of the dominant media. He's actually a reporter for the Washington Post, but he's been doing some very good work on Fauci, the Wuhan lab, and the whole stuff of that. We're going to play a short clip here of Josh Rogan on Dr. Fauci and the Wuhan lab. Here we go.
You mention him in your list of names that are, a little too connected to, I mean, is it the WHO or is it China or what is he too connected to for us to put our full trust in him?
So what you have to understand is that this body of research, this gain of function research, the whole world of virologists, and I came to learn a lot about how this operates over the last year and a half of writing this book. It's very insular, okay? And I often talk to scientists who say the same thing. They say, listen, we really want to speak out about this, but we can't do it. Why can't we do it? Well, we get all of our funding from NIH or NIAID, which is the National Association for Infectious Diseases, which is run by Dr. Fauci for years and years and years. And so we can't say anything like, oh, gain of function research might be dangerous or it might have come from the lab, because we're going to lose our careers. We're going to lose our funding. We're not going to be able to do the work. So there's this, people like to say, oh, the scientists all think this, but there's a whole bunch of more and more are coming out, actually, and you see them every day. And Redfield's sort of signal was like, this is okay to do. You can say this, but still they get attacked for being racist or whatever, or they might lose their funding. And the head of that pyramid, the head of the funding, the head of the entire field really is Anthony Fauci. He's the godfather of gain of function research as we know it. Now, that, again, just what I said there is like too hot for, TV, because people don't want to think about the fact that our hero of the pandemic, Dr. Fauci, might also have been connected to this research, which might also have been connected to the outbreaks. Again, I'm not a
There you go. I mean, that's not Roy spouting off on that. That is Josh Rogan from the Washington Post. What do you say, Dr. Kelly?
Well, this is something that I know quite a bit about, Roy. To be very clear to your listeners, gain of function is an artificial manipulation in a laboratory of a pathogen, be that a virus or a bacteria, to help to see how we can make that pathogen more lethal, more transmissible, more virulent. I would not go quite so far as to use the term weaponize, but fundamentally we are taking a virus or a bacterium and saying, how can we manipulate it to make it stronger? That research is very questionable, and it was going on in the United States up until 2015. Under the Obama administration, a moratorium was put on doing that research in the United States, and it was specifically moved to the virology lab in Wuhan, China, at which time Anthony Fauci, who is the head of the NIAID, gave $3.7 million to that virology lab in Wuhan to continue the gain of function testing on COVID specifically. So it was determined that we shouldn't keep doing it in this country, and it's very questionable whether it should be done at all. But Anthony Fauci gave a large amount of taxpayer dollars to the lab in Wuhan to continue that. And there's no question that people would have normally called Fauci to task on that, except that their own funding in this country, whether they work for the CDC, the FDA, the NIH, or the NIAID, their funding is all controlled by Anthony Fauci. So no one would say, hey, this is really a bad idea. Let's not send this really questionable research overseas. Particularly, let's not put it in the hands of one of our greatest geopolitical foes. Because there's no question, Roy, that that's exactly what happened. COVID-19 was manipulated in the lab in Wuhan, and one way or another, purposefully or out of abject incompetence, that virus got out, and it spread around the world, causing, unbelievable devastation.
I mean, the evidence to me is mounting up more and more that Fauci was doing a CYA. Once he knew this stuff was coming out, in January of 2020, and this is my reason, is Peter Navarro, who was in the room with Trump, with Fauci in January, when Peter Navarro was saying you got to put this travel ban in on China, and Fauci was just having a heart attack. And in Peter Navarro's words, never met Anthony Fauci before, didn't know who he was. All I could say was, what an arrogant SOB this guy is. He was wrong on this, whether he was deceptive or wrong on the mask, and we'll get to that in a little bit of that. But it's, at least in my mind, my analysis of this is Anthony Fauci has been doing a CYA because he knew what was going on more than probably anybody in this room, and had more evidence of what was going on, knew it, and was let this thing go, or advocated policies which made it even more dangerous, Dr. Kelly.
Oh, there's no question. And what Josh Rogan said is exactly right. Anthony Fauci is the father of this. He was behind the gain of function research that was going on, and a decision was made, as I said, in 2015, that this should not continue to be conducted here in the United States. So what does Fauci do? He says, let's continue it, but let's continue it in a lab that I will arrange to fund in China. It previously had been done, it was happening primarily at the NIAID, as well as at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, my medical school alma mater, by the way, and at the University of Texas in Galveston. So there was strong connections between those two labs in Wuhan. Once the Obama administration put the moratorium on the testing, Anthony Fauci, not wanting to miss a beat, simply moved it to Wuhan, where it would continue. So for him to all of a sudden, when this thing happened in 2020, to act as if this is all novel and new, let's go back, because there are some clips where Fauci very clearly predicted 2 years earlier, there will be a novel outbreak, there will be a pandemic. And he talked about, he predicted under the Trump administration that this would happen. And I think he knew full well that this was a risk. I'm not saying that it was purposefully launched on the public. I'm not saying that it was purposefully being, quote, weaponized, but there's no question that Anthony Fauci has a lot of blood on his hands, and he should be held to account for all of this, in addition to the fact that he has so horribly misled the pandemic response as to have been, I mean, it is downright laughable at this point. He has lost all public health credibility.
The next one, and I don't think it got a lot of play, but it was in the Epoch Times, an exclusive, flip up number 4 quick, exclusive. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' lockdowns were a huge mistake. He's even saying that even in hindsight, he's regretting that first 2 weeks. He said that was probably a bad policy of doing it, and then, not to mention that Dr. Kelly Victory, I think, and Roy were saying that was probably not the greatest thing to do, but we'll set that aside for a second. He's now saying that was it, and he issued it like later last year, and that when people were getting on his case about, from Joe Biden on down of you're opening up and this and that and and you're going to kill everybody. He said no. He said we're not making the mistake again. We're keeping Florida open, and it's been proven just on the real world lab rat experiment of going on. It's been proven that the Ron DeSantis, the Kristi Noems, that kept their states open, that kept their economies open, suffered no more ill effects than the lockdown states of the twin evil governors, Cuomo and gruesome gulag Gavin Newsom, going on of that. Why can't we deal with reality, Dr. Kelly Victory?
No, and that is absolutely the truth, Roy. There's no question that the places that had fewer lockdowns, fewer mask mandates, fewer limitations on businesses, schools, churches, you name it, fared at least as well as the places that had the draconian lockdowns, and in terms of their COVID numbers, but they didn't suffer the devastating impact economically, socially, psychologically, and everything in between. And we've known that around the world. Look at places like Sweden. But you're right, in this country, to compare South Dakota, Texas, Florida, some of the southern states, with places like California and New York and New Jersey. And we know that Florida has actually an older population in general and a more obese population in general than California, yet their numbers across the board in terms of cases, hospitalizations, ICU admissions, and deaths are lower. So Ron DeSantis clearly had it figured out because he actually looked at what was going around the rest of the globe and looked at places like Sweden and said, wow, this isn't working. Sweden's getting through this faster than the people who are locking down, and they aren't having the unbelievable economic devastation. We know that lockdowns are so horrifically just harmful to people. And the greatest failure here is that it is the mandate of public health to look at the impact of any of these interventions on the entire population. When you are working in public health, you don't have the luxury to say, let me just look at COVID-19 and people getting sick with COVID-19. So we're going to lock down schools, or close restaurants and bars and people's small businesses. We're going to stop people from going to church. You don't have the luxury to do that. You have to look at the impact of those lockdowns, mask wearing, social distancing, on the entire population, even people who are not at any risk whatsoever from COVID. And that didn't happen here. And that is what will go down in history as the greatest public health failure we've ever known.
Lord Fauci on Meet the Press was going on about the same thing about, oh, well, it kind of was dancing around. They asked, well, we're going to have a booster shot. Well, yeah, probably in the fall of this and of that. And then about masks. Yeah, he was basically saying, yeah, vaccines are going to be in your future, mask wearing or whatever I or the elite establishment say, we rule, you eat it. That's what I got from it. We got about 2 minutes left to wrap it up, Dr. Kelly.
Well, again, every time Anthony Fauci says we're following the science, he's doing exactly the opposite. Yet one more huge meta-analysis just came out in the National Institute of Health library on masks, a huge meta-analysis showing absolutely that masks do nothing to stop the spread of respiratory viruses, including COVID, and that they, in fact, are profoundly deleterious. They have unbelievably negative effects on children, on adults, everything from headaches, insomnia, anxiety, you name it, and they do nothing whatsoever. Same thing with lockdowns. These are things that have profoundly harmed more Americans than the virus ever could have done. And it is time for Anthony Fauci and a number of others, by the way, to have a retirement party.
No doubt about that. Thanks for being on, Dr. Kelly. We'll do it again real soon.
Sounds great, Roy. Thanks for having me.
Man, that's it gets kind of. It's good kind of. I mean, I don't know how to say it. I guess it's just kind of freaky how almost. I mean, I haven't found anything yet in almost a year and a half of this that I've disagreed with of what Dr. Kelly's said, or if I see something she picks up on it and agrees with it or expands on it like that, it's kind of frightening a little bit as we go on. But I'm sure there's got to be something we're going to come up and at least have a differing of opinion on or something going forth. But man, it's been I got to maybe 30% of what I had laid up. So you got a lot to look forward to on tomorrow's show as we maybe dust up. I'm sure there won't be any news coming in tomorrow, so we can just dust up on the other 70% I didn't get to today. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with the Derek Chauvin trial and the aftermath of that when the jury finally makes its decision, guilty, not guilty, or hung jury in this thing. How long it's going to take to deliberate, who knows? It actually went what's been a couple weeks or so of that. I figured it was going to be like a month or two, couple months on this thing, but it went actually faster than I thought of what went on. So we shall see what that brings us. We know what the dog whistling's going on. From the other side, trying to do that back and forth. I hope you had a great weekend. We get after it. On this week, we'll mow down all of the stuff that the wrong side of the fence crowd puts up of that. And we'll give you the analysis like we did on Maxine Waters. It just hasn't been the last year that she's been promoting hate and racism. It goes back to 1992 and beyond. She was promoting the exact same rhetoric of rioting. If we don't get what we want, we are the judge, jury, and executioner. And it's okay. She was promoting that after the Rodney King situation in L.A., which if didn't happen in her district was darn close. She refused to condemn the violence then. She's refusing to do it now. And she's giving the signal along, which is absolutely sad, with Chris Cuomo. Well, just go out and kill some white kids if you want to get what you want. I can't make this stuff up. I got to applaud Josh Rogan from Washington Post for telling the Fauci story, and congratulations again to Bill Melugin, Fox 11 reporter. Will be for a couple more weeks, but is moving up to Fox News. But will still be the LA correspondent, so hopefully we'll still be getting his great investigative reporting on that in California, because he's been one of the few that have been keeping Gavin Newsom and the officials' feet to the fire. We'll be back tomorrow on a Taco Tuesday. Finish up what we didn't get to today and add in more. Until then, in 23 hours, see ya.